Convention coverage has changed a lot through the years.
The following program is brought to you in living color on NBC.
From Chicago, Illinois, NBC News reports the Democratic National Convention.
In the early days, it wasn't exactly polished, at least not by modern standards.
NBC News has learned from a reliable source that Senator Muskie of Maine has been chosen to be the running mate of Vice President Kennedy, Vice President Humphrey, let me say, in the
Just the act of seeing the convention floor was newsworthy.
Who the hell are you? Secret Service, push! He's an elected official. They're shouting Secret Service, push here.
NBC News first covered the 1940 convention, and beginning in 1956, network coverage was anchored by Chet Huntley and Douglas Brinkley.
I'm Chet Huntley, your host on behalf of NBC News for the complete convention coverage.
Things were different in the early days of television. Sometimes the anchors would turn their backs on the cameras.
He is now, has now taken a seat there, waiting for some ceremonies on the stand to be over.
And long before the internet, snark was a common feature of the broadcast.
So for those whose political appetites go no farther than balloons, noisemakers, tinsel, and a kind of tribal insanity, this is the day.
There is a very high degree of discontent among the losers, of course.
There wasn't enough time to go downtown to eat, and that leaves only the hot dog stand operators completely happy about the whole thing.
And let's see, I don't have anything else to say to you.
No, that's it.
In 1948, the TV networks collectively convinced the parties to hold their conventions in the same city, Philadelphia. Back then, the coverage was basically just raw footage. But it wasn't long before you could see the early signs of modern TV institutions. Things like the panel discussion.
These old men are continuing to treat the rest of the party like children.
Or man-on-the-street interviews.
Mrs. Oliver, what is this object first?
This is one of the new Goldwater canes that
is a cane with
yes,
gold water in it.
That's right.
You have fairly long sideburns and a cowlick hanging down there, but you are, after all, a very clean, good-looking man. Would you feel divided loyalties, or do you feel they've been divided already?
I think the whole party is divided right now.
I'm standing here now with Governor George Romney. He was telling me that early this morning he had the first exercise you've had.
Good exercise. I got out and took about a 9.
And by the 1970s, the last decade before cable news began, the format for covering the conventions had been pretty much set.
They haven't dominated this party. It has not been the party of the Northeast.
Well, but at least they were in there taking their cuts.
There were some new gimmicks added, but from then on, the major changes came from the parties themselves. Beginning with the 1972 election, the conventions really just ratified the primary results, and it took a few election cycles for the changes to settle in.
The leaders of the party and representatives of the two candidates, up on the rostrum, cutting a deal. Speaker O'Neill on the phone, people from the Kennedy group and the Carter group.
But the major difference between coverage then and now, besides Twitter, Snapchat, and Facebook Live, is that the parties have learned to take their disagreements off of the convention floor and away from the cameras.
Well, they had the equivalent of a smoke-filled room right there on the rostrum. But as I say, the Democrats are very big on ecology. There's not so much smoking here. I don't think they can fill a room with smoke anymore.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.